I've talked about John Woo a lot on this channel, and it's probably what most of you subscribed for. My most popular videos circle his filmography, and if it wasn't clear, he's one of my cinematic heroes. I've been working on this channel, intermittently I admit, for 5 years.
5 fucking years!
I can't just keep making John Woo videos forever, and in my opinion, some of my best videos have nothing to do with the guy. We're getting those gorgeous new Shout Factory Blu-rays through to January, and I've managed to see most of the restorations on the big screen beforehand. Never say never, but it's a good time to walk away from the filmography of Mr. Woo. But, given my admiration for him and his work, it feels wrong to close out my Woo essays on such a down note. I haven't really turned around on the overly grim and repetitive Silent Night, and I stand by my review of it. But, and this is probably going to be one of my most controversial takes, ironically, I quite enjoyed The Killer 2024. In fact, I think it's probably his best American film since Face Off, even if I've recently converted to being a Windtalkers apologist. I don't even think this is all that spicy a take. It was a common sentiment among many of the film's positive reviews, and you don't have to go very far to find people who had a lot of fun with it. And that's what it is, most of all, fun. If the original film is Jean-Pierre Melville, meditative, somber, and baroque, the remake is Jean-Pierre Jeunet. It's saturated with color, it's sexy, airier, and more playful. The emotional gut punches of the original film's tragedy, which I was able to experience on the big screen for the first time recently, are simply not recreated here. I wouldn't say it even tries to. That alone might poison some people against the remake, and I understand and am sympathetic to that. Expectations will count for a lot here, and granted, in the run-up to the film's release, mine were pretty much underwater. It absolutely has flaws, and I will get into them. Let me also be clear that it could never replace the original masterpiece, and I never expected it to. To be honest, I really didn't want Woo to try a one-to-one Capcom Resident Evil-style remake of that film. If he'd played it safe and tried to recast the same parts with the same script and tone, with modern John Wick clone action not unlike Silent Night's, it would have paled in comparison to its predecessor to an even greater degree, and just wouldn't have been as worthwhile a project. The 1989 original is an action film made in a different time, in a different country, under different ownership. Part of the point of my 4 Classics video was to explore how much those films represent a sort of bottled lightning that was difficult to recapture in the same way. Woo's American oeuvre has always felt more glossy and stylized than his Hong Kong work, which often carried an urban grit that was a fascinating contrast with his directorial tendencies. So I, for one, am glad Woo went in a very different direction, and I think if this had been called anything but The Killer, people might have been kinder to it. This is MI2 once a thief-coded John Woo, and Andy Warhol next to a Goya. That said, there are plenty of winks to John Woo fans in this film, mostly through references to his filmography. To name just a few, moving in on headphones playing a plot-central song after a shootout felt like a nod to Face Off's Somewhere Over the Rainbow sequence. Z lighting candles for those she's killed reminded me of Along making paper cranes for the dead and hard-boiled. Hiding beers instead of cigarettes from the nurse. The cop retracing the killer's steps, albeit in a more comedic than serious way. Marco Beltrami's score has some fun spaghetti western jingles and classic John Woo jazzy riffs. And this line,
"Nothing to patch, no bullets to dig out of you,"
reminding us that Ajong took more punishment in the first set piece than Z did here. This is a great action director in his Twilight era, still having fun, winking at his own legacy and reinterpreting his own work through a modern lens. The opening church scene is a great example of this intertextuality.
When they built this church, 200 years ago?
252.
Did they ever think it would get turned into a Starbucks? Because that's what I hear the plan is.
Maybe God likes coffee.
It's nearly his favorite drink if it weren't for Guinness.
I love this little conversation because it captures the metatextual disconnect of remaking the 1989 film's operatic tragedy of chivalrous moral codes in a corrupt world in today's often very silly, branded corporate dystopia. Z straight up says at one point that the church is deconsecrated or no longer blessed. This might be Woo acknowledging that he's returning to his masterpiece and maybe not under ideal conditions. The film doesn't always escape a made-for-TV Peacock streamer look. While I don't think he was a bad fit for the role, Sam Worthington's Irish accent is...
So you want me to give up the girl? What are you offering in return? What's the deal?
Pretty questionable. I also think Diana Silvers' turn as Jen the nightclub singer has nothing on Sally Ye's performance, and she might be the weakest link in the cast. Her connection with Z doesn't land very strongly, and given that it's so pivotal to the story, yeah, that's a shame. There are a few too many flashbacks that bring the original film's forward momentum and rock-solid pacing into sharper relief, and last but certainly not least, without spoiling anything, the finale's religious overtones escalate to a point that, invites incredulity, to put it mildly. Having said that, Brian Hedgeland, Josh Campbell, and Matt Stukin's script demonstrates an admiration and understanding of Woo's best work. As in the 1989 film, a prolific assassin accidentally blinds a young nightclub singer as they carry out a hit. This time, the assassin is a woman named Z. She has a curious connection to a cop named Say, whose investigation into Parisian drug trafficking brings him in direct contact with her. It is a very different feeling movie, but it rewards you for knowing the original well. A lot of familiar plot devices from it, the nightclub song, the killer's moral code, the scarf, are reinterpreted and worked into a more elaborate crime narrative than the original film had. I like that the singer is more complicit in the crime here, and that her involvement in the trafficking scheme connects to Z's backstory meaningfully. This makes her conflict over whether or not to just kill her and finish the job at her employer's behest more compelling. Nathalie Emmanuel is a badass and likable lead, and Omar Sy is a badass and likable foil to her, and the more romantic, playful interpretation of their relationship is an interesting twist. And they both bring the emotional nuance and physicality to handle Woo's shifts in tone and demanding action gracefully.
7 down.
Yeah, I can never finish a crossword.
Rigoletto's forte. 4-letter word. Second letter E.
Well, I know Rigoletto is an opera about a clown.
Rigoletto wasn't exactly a clown. He was a jester. No. Jest. Can I?
By all means.
They have great chemistry, and I was grinning ear to ear through the interrogation room scene and many of their split-screen calls. Also, yeah, there are a lot of split screens in this film, one clever way that Woo handles exposition while maintaining visual dynamism. One of my favorite ideas is a Mexican standoff that takes place through FaceTime, which, I mean, come on, that's just the perfect embodiment of remaking The Killer in 2024 right there. But what about the action? Well, I have good news. By his own admission, the action in Silent Night was a departure for John Woo. He was trying something grittier and more grounded to better suit that story, which I understand as a choice, but it muted his distinctive voice somewhat. Here, that is absolutely not the case. If you hated this film, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. It's funny though, almost every John Woo movie I've even gently ribbed over the years has had defenders come out of the woodwork to clap back at me, often in very well thought out ways. I'm not sure if that'll happen this time or not. Maybe that's partially because of how beloved the original is. And yes, had I seen this in theaters, I don't think I'd be anywhere close to as spellbound or exhilarated or misty-eyed as I was seeing the '89 version, no question. The original is a very special, very important film to me. I grew up with it. It will always be untouchable, and the 2024 remake is not. But I don't know, man, I still liked it, and if a die-hard fan of the OG can find this much to like about it, maybe you can too. If you haven't seen it, I'd give it a try with your expectations in check. While it maybe falls short of the rebirth suggested in its final lines, it proves the old master still knows how to have fun, and still has more than a few tricks up his sleeve. As always, I'll be eagerly awaiting whatever he does next.